Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, San Diego Marines under investigation for blackface.
Blackface. Good morning, sir.
How the Marine Corps responded to this viral video. Plus, a special report on a veteran center here in San Diego, how it helps heal war wounds once service members return home. And if you missed the Oscars, stay tuned. We'll have a full wrap-up of all of the hits and misses. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening, and thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. The Marine Corps is investigating 2 local Marines who appear to pose in blackface while in uniform. KPBS military reporter Steve Walsh says the post has spread on social media.
The post shows 2 Marines in their utilities. One of the Marines says the word blackface, then uses a word often seen as a racial slur, which we have muted from the video.
Blackface. Good morning, sir.
This video was originally posted on Snapchat. Last week, the video was posted on Twitter, where commenters called for the Marines to be disciplined and discharged from the Corps. Major Joseph Patterson, spokesman for the 3rd Marine Aircraft Wing, issued his statement Monday saying, "The Marines are aware of the post. An investigation has been initiated to determine the facts. The 3rd Marine Aircraft Wing takes all allegations of discriminatory behavior very seriously, as they stand in stark contrast to our core values." Zach Heifeld is one of the men in the video. He spoke briefly when I called a number on his Instagram account. Heifeld says the blackface are charcoal masks. He says it looks a lot worse than it is, and he didn't mean to post the images. It was a bad mistake. He had no intention of offending, and he takes full responsibility. Heifeld also acknowledged that he has been contacted by his command. 3rd Marine Aircraft Wing did not release further details, including the identity of the 2nd Marine or the circumstances surrounding the incident, citing an ongoing investigation. Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
We're taking a look back at the murders of 2 San Diego women killed 15 years ago in the Lincoln Park community. We reviewed the effects on policing, the community, and the families. Tonight, KPBS investigative reporter Claire Tragesser talks to the man convicted of the murders, a man who still claims he didn't do it.
I've talked to James Carter several times. On a cell phone, he says he's borrowing from a friend. I'm not sure if that's actually true. Cell phones aren't allowed in prison.
Can you hear me?
Yep, can you hear me?
Did you want to ask me some questions, or you just want me to tell what happened?
The first few times we talked, it seemed like no matter what I asked, Carter would just end up repeating the same thing, that there was no evidence against him.
There's no evidence. There's no fingerprints, eyewitnesses, no car, no gun, no nothing.
So what is the evidence against him? Right here, I wish I could let you hear from Robert Hickey, the prosecutor on the case, but the district attorney's office wouldn't let me interview him. Instead, I can have a colleague read some of his statements from the trial transcripts. There wasn't much physical evidence against James Carter. Robert Hickey says this himself in his closing argument to the jury.
As I've told you before, don't expect. There will be no DNA in a drive-by shooting. Rarely fingerprints.
Hickey also doesn't have many strong eyewitnesses. He has a few people who were at the Dr. J's store testify that they maybe saw someone in the car with long hair, which Carter has. So what does Hickey have? Well, he has one thing many prosecutors have when trying people from Southeast San Diego, especially young black men. He can link James Carter to a gang and then use that link to establish a motive. Here's what Hickey says during the trial.
What you have are the gang members who learn about the crime. It's not a perfect crime to commit a gang drive-by shooting because, as I've said before, a gang crime committed anonymously is committed in vain. You need to get your status and credit for committing the shooting so you can get your respect as a violent and notorious gang member and to check that box for revenge.
For Hickey, it's pretty easy to link Carter to a gang. At the trial, he has police from the gang unit talk about how Carter was a documented gang member and that they found letters and rap lyrics in his room that say he was in a gang. Hickey also asks almost every witness about Carter's tattoos. He has several that say things like BK and NFL, which Hickey says stand for blood killer, and a couple bad words about Lincoln Park. This reminds the jury again and again that Carter was in a gang. And sometimes that's the point.
Moving down the hall, Tim Atkins, as I said, was 23 years in prison for a gang shooting that occurred in L.A.
Michael Samanchik walks down a hallway filled with photos. He's the managing attorney for the California Innocence Project and is showing off cases where clients have been exonerated.
Wendy Cohen actually was one of the students assigned to his case, and she found one of the witnesses that claimed that Tim had done the crime. She found the witness and got her to come in and tell the truth, which was that Tim didn't have anything to do with the murder.
Samanchik isn't representing Carter, but he talked generally about the strategy prosecutors use to link people to gangs.
It doesn't take much to connect a person to a gang. For example, if a suspect or a defendant is seen with a few known gang members and is photographed with known gang members 3 or 4 times on like a street corner in gang territory.
Samanchik says associating someone with a gang makes a strong impression on the jury.
We know that gang evidence gets convictions, and then an expert or a gang expert would get up at trial and testify about all of the bad things that the gang has done. Not necessarily what this individual has done, but this is the kind of things that this gang has done. So then what ends up happening is the jury makes that leap. They think, oh, well, even if the evidence isn't super strong in this case, the defendant is connected to this gang, and this gang has committed all of these other crimes. So if he hasn't done this one, he's probably done another crime at some point. So we can feel comfortable with our conviction here.
So in James Carter's case, did the prosecutor Robert Hickey use the strategy of associating Carter with a gang to make the jury feel more comfortable convicting him? Again, I wanted to ask Hickey about this, but wasn't allowed to talk to him. In the trial, Hickey has several informants testify about the shooting. We'll talk more about police use of informants and the impact that has on a community tomorrow. Claire Tregesser, KPBS News.
For a longer version of that story and the rest of the series, subscribe to the KPBS podcast, San Diego Stories. Go to kpbs.org/J. San Diego took a major step forward today towards meeting its renewable energy goals. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says the City Council gave its approval for creating a new public sector energy program.
San Diego's Climate Action Plan requires the city to run on 100% clean energy by 2035. Mayor Kevin Faulkner last year announced he wanted to achieve that goal through a community choice energy program. That would allow the city to purchase energy on behalf of residents and businesses and set their electricity rates. SDG&E would continue to maintain the electrical grid. The City Council approved a resolution in support of such a program in partnership with other neighboring cities. Councilwoman Barbara Bree says it's a good deal for the environment and for ratepayers.
At the end of the day, this will help us meet reducing our greenhouse gas emissions goals. It will lower rates for consumers. We will be able to reinvest in our communities, and we will create good jobs for San Diegans.
Now, there are still some big unresolved issues. First and foremost, will the new program require new power projects be built with unionized labor? Those details have yet to be sorted out later this year. The city's Community Choice Program expects to start serving customers in 2021. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
There's a call to help farm workers impacted by this month's heavy rains. Advocates say flooding caused about 250 Fallbrook farm workers to miss weeks of work. Now the Fallbrook Human Rights Committee and the National Latino Research Center at Cal State San Marcos are trying to help.
We found out that many of their houses, which are predominantly mobile homes, pretty old ones, might have had leaky roofs, and so they're looking at making some immediate repairs. And we're also looking for food, given that they may not be able to actually have enough money to buy groceries.
The organizations are collecting food, tarps, blankets, and warm clothes for the impacted families. You can donate between now and Friday from 9 to 4 p.m. We have the locations at kpbs.org.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, survivors criticize Pope Francis for not taking enough action to confront sexual abuse in the church. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
President Donald Trump is heading into his second meeting with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. As Tracy Brown from the Associated Press reports, once again, full denuclearization will be the focus.
Be a very good meeting. Tremendous things are happening for our country. I'm now, right after this meeting, I leave for Vietnam, where I meet with Chairman Kim, and we talk about something that, frankly, he never spoke to anybody about, but we're speaking and we're speaking aloud, and I think we can have a very good summit. I think we'll have a very tremendous summit.
The capital of Vietnam, Hanoi, is set to host the second summit between President Donald Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un this week.
The stakes are very high, but the expectations are very low.
If they do come away with a nothing burger, if they do come away with just, sort of, again, statements of political will, the criticism is going to be so high.
Trump and Kim met last June in Singapore. Outreach, the American president has said, opens a path to peace. But the Singapore summit made history by simply being the first ever meeting between sitting leaders of longtime enemies. And Trump says it was his tough language that brought them together.
Fire and fury, total annihilation. My button is bigger than yours and my button works. Remember that? You don't remember that. And people said, Trump is crazy. And you know what it ended up being? A very good relationship. I like him a lot and he likes me a lot. Nobody else would have done that.
For the second summit, observers will be looking for more concrete actions and a lot more details. Experts using open source satellite imagery say North Korea made enough weapons-grade material to boost its stockpile from an estimated 30 nuclear weapons at the end of 2017 to as many as 37 by the end of last year.
How much does the U.S. lower the bar on its previous requirements in order to get success?
Up for negotiation, continuation of U.S. sanctions, a declaration of North Korea's nuclear capabilities, and the future of the Yongbyon facility. Also on the table, a possible declaration to end the Korean War. The fighting ended with an armistice in July 1953, but that armistice has yet to be replaced with a peace treaty, leaving the peninsula in a technical state of war.
Kim Jong-un then can use for his domestic purposes as well to help justify going down that road of denuclearization because the political relationship is changing.
Trump could unilaterally announce the end of the Korean War, but he can't by himself conclude an actual peace treaty. The first Trump-Kim summit failed to produce a solid plan for ridding the North of nuclear weapons, ramping up further pressure on the second face-to-face meeting. Tracy Brown, Associated Press.
The VA's Aspire Center specializes in treatment for Iraq and Afghanistan war veterans with PTSD. KPBS military reporter Steve Walsh examines why the center is so unique.
29-year-old James Ritchie is an Afghan war vet, but the images that really follow him are from when the Marine was deployed to aid Fukushima, Japan in 2011 after a tsunami and nuclear disaster. Ritchie came ashore in a small craft to see bodies floating in the water.
Mainly a lot of deceased people, family that were looking for their other family members, a lot of distressed civilians, and plenty of destruction.
He stayed in the Marines until 2016, but he really didn't feel he had a problem until last year.
I mean, I knew I had some stuff going on while I was in the service, but I was surrounded by brothers, sisters that understood. You know, you go to work every day surrounded by 1,000 of your closest friends.
That bond is a central part of the philosophy behind the VA's Aspire Center. San Diego had an influx of returning combat veterans, says Carl Rimley, who runs the intensive inpatient program.
We found that the younger veterans coming from the more recent conflicts didn't meld well with the older veterans in the VA. And so when you put them together in programs, oftentimes they would not be able to complete.
Veterans get job training and life skill training, along with treatment for PTSD. The treatments are the same therapy used at VAs throughout the system, but here the veterans stay for months.
So instead of getting one time a week evidence-based therapy, they're getting therapies 5 days a week, 6 days a week, 7 days a week.
After 5 years, Aspire is trying to measure success. The VA sees PTSD as a chronic illness. Symptoms are managed or reduced. On average, the 400 patients who have gone through the program have reduced their use of the VA's medical services by about 50 to 65% when measured about 18 months after they left. In 2003, Irvin Reyes was in Ramadi when a truck loaded with explosives detonated in the center of his compound. After he retired, he couldn't tell anyone that he could still smell the burning flesh.
Because it's so heavy, that it makes all of my training like nothing, to where I was carrying. Couldn't breathe sometimes. You don't eat, you don't sleep, you don't rest, but you don't get tired. My wall of purpose.
Like Richie, it took a family member to push Reyes into treatment. Technically, the program is only for veterans at risk of being homeless. San Diego VA wants to loosen that designation, feeling the intense inpatient treatment may be the best way to help more vets like Reyes and Richie move on with their lives. Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
Southern Californian surfers may not know it, but they're benefiting every day from research done decades ago by a legendary oceanographer, Walter Monk, who died earlier this month. KPBS reporter Eric Anderson says one of Monk's lasting gifts is his work pioneering surf forecasting.
The water level is definitely higher.
23-year-old Taylor Morhart scans the ocean at San Diego's Tourmaline Surf Park between Pacific Beach and La Jolla.
This guy's got a really good wave. Really, it's kind of like looking at it and seeing who's having the most fun and kind of like feeding off their energy, really, yeah.
Morhart started surfing here when she was 7. It was something she did off and on since then, and now she counts it as one of her passions.
I think the connection you feel with the ocean, the ocean controls my mood.
Morhart has had plenty of company through the years. 72-year-old Lynn Sparks has been dipping his toes in the San Diego surf for 6 decades. When he started, it was quite an effort to get to the beach.
We just carried the board, double carry down the hill here, and we went in the water no matter how bad it was. And we got really cold, and we had to run all the way down to the beach to a Safeway that was our food basket that was down there on Garnett to get a bunch of wooden crates so we could come back here and make a fire just so we could go out one more time.
Sparks and his friends didn't enjoy the luxury of wetsuits or surfing forecasts. He actually didn't know until he got to the beach what those conditions would be like.
You just had to come down and check it out. Until you got a car, you just went down and whatever there was there, you went out and had fun with it with all your friends.
Hitting the beach when the waves were rolling was a gamble in the old days.
It was all quite hazy, and no one really knew when the waves were going to be good.
Scott Bass reports on surfing conditions for KPBS. He says committed surfers allowed the uncertainty of the ocean to shape their lives. People actually chose jobs, schools, or even partners that were flexible enough to let them change plans at a moment's notice if good waves were hitting the shore. Bass says science has changed that.
We're not so much at the beck and call of a hope and a prayer that we're going to be there when it's good. We can plan our lives a little bit better, knowing that, hey, in 3 days the wind and the swell is going to be here, and so you don't have to worry for the next 2 days. You can actually get your responsibilities taken care of.
Surf cams beam current conditions over the internet, and forecasts have become much more sophisticated. Scripps Institution of Oceanography researcher Dale Stokes credits famed oceanographer Walter Monk.
Walter's work was instrumental in figuring that out, and it forms the basis of a lot of surf predictions that you see online today. They've just sort of tweaked the calculations a little bit based on Walter's original theories, and that's what we use to model surf hitting the coast all around the world.
Monk pioneered his surf forecasting models for the military. He famously predicted wave conditions on D-Day, clearing the way for the Allied invasion of German-occupied France. But Stokes says it was Monk's far-reaching work after the war that cemented his title as the father of surf forecasting. He set up research stations from stormy Antarctica to Alaska and tracked the waves as they moved across the Pacific.
Where oceans swell and where waves originated and how they travel around the world. And Walter was instrumental in solving some of those problems.
Monk's illustrious career ended earlier this month with his death, but his contribution to a signature Southern California passion will live on well into the future. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
Surf forecasting isn't the only thing Monk influenced. He also did groundbreaking research on ocean sound transmission, deep sea tides, and climate change. On a programming note, this Wednesday at 9 p.m., KPBS will be airing a 1-hour documentary on Walter Monk called Spirit of Discovery. Make sure to tune in. The sun is shining back on San Diego, and it should stick around for the rest of the week. Meteorologist Erin Calandra has our full forecast.
Well, happy Monday to you. I hope you had a wonderful day. The weather today, not too bad. We had some sunshine, a couple of clouds, very typical weather for this time of year. So taking a look at the satellite and radar over the last couple of hours, maybe a few clouds moving through, but no rain. That's to the north of us. We're going to see a couple of inches in the Bay Area to the regions to the north. Not reaching us until perhaps later this week. We could see a couple of showers around. But for tonight, 49 degrees, some clouds, and you'll notice those clouds will be increasing, coming in off the Pacific through tomorrow and midweek, some high clouds. So temperatures tonight in Oceanside at 42 degrees, Ramona 36, and El Cajon right around 44. Some sunshine tomorrow. Again, those high clouds should be expected. The rain is still to the north of us, but there is a chance it's going to come gliding down, and we will see maybe a shower on Wednesday, maybe even into Thursday. Taking a look at the temperatures tomorrow, Oceanside at 62, San Diego sunny at 64, and Borrego Springs in those mid-70s. Late week, well, here it is. Here comes that precipitation creeping down to the south. Take a look at the extended forecast for the coast. Could see a shower in spots Wednesday or Thursday, but the best chance is really going to be over the weekend. We could see spotty showers. Temperatures will be in the mid-60s. Inland, we'll see spotty showers perhaps Wednesday and Thursday, but again, the best chance happening over the weekend. Saturday, you might need to use that umbrella. Temperatures in those mid-60s. We expect the mountains to stay dry, sunshine each day, becoming kind of breezy on Thursday. Temperatures in the low 50s. And in the deserts, well, it's going to be sunny and nice. Very pleasant conditions with our highs in those 70s all week. Lots of sunshine. For KPBS News, I'm Erin Calandra. Back to you.
The 91st Academy Award winners are in the books. KPBS film critic Beth Accomando analyzes the Oscar winners and losers.
Let's start with the good news. Olivia Colman was the big surprise, nabbing the Best Actress Oscar for The Favorite right out of the hands of supposed Oscar favorite Glenn Close. Colman provided the night's most delightful acceptance speech.
Oh, it's genuinely quite stressful. This is hilarious. Got an Oscar.
Spike Lee finally won an Oscar after 30 years of the Academy ignoring him. He won Best Adapted Screenplay for BlacKkKlansman and took the time on stage to deliver a message.
The 2020 presidential election is around the corner. Let's all mobilize. Let's all be on the right side of history. Make the moral choice between love versus hate. Let's do the right thing.
Alfonso Cuarón racked up a first by becoming the only person to win a Best Cinematography and Best Director award, both for Roma. Roma also marked Netflix's first Best Foreign Language Film award. The Best Presenter moment goes to Melissa McCarthy for wearing a train covered with rabbits in reference to The Favorite. Her bunny Puppet had a hard time opening the envelope, but the winner for Best Costume, Ruth Carter, took home the first Oscar for a Marvel movie and heralded a night that would bring the most individual Oscars won by African Americans and women. The bad news, however, was that Green Book took the Best Picture prize. The LA Times had an article up almost immediately calling it the worst Best Picture winner since Crash. Green Book delivered a feel-good film about race relations, but told a black story from a white perspective in a year when Spike Lee and other black directors had made better, more relevant, and less formulaic films about race. The recently instituted preferential balloting for Best Picture may explain how Green Book managed to pull a victory. But Academy voting has always been a mystery to me and doesn't look to be changing anytime soon. Beth Accomando, KPBS News.
Now here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. On Morning Edition, potentially dangerous research on local veterans. The VA confirms liver samples were taken from patients without their consent. And on Midday Edition, a conversation with Alicia Garza, co-founder of the Black Lives Matter movement, about her upcoming speech at UC San Diego. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.